Welcome to the Gary DeMar Blogcast. This audio is brought to you by Canon Press.
Welcome to the Gary DeMar Blogcast. Topic of today's entry, the biblical model of church and state, is part 2 of a multi-part discussion of the Bible, the Constitution, and the jurisdictional separation of church and state. One way to keep Christians out of the public arena, especially in the realm of politics, is to claim that there is a separation between church and state, which, when interpreted and applied by courts and organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union and Americans United for Separation of Church and State, means a radical separation of religion and civil government, that is, keeping God out of politics. The argument is based on the assumption that in biblical times, church and state were merged, and in modern times, the First Amendment separates the two institutions. Supposedly, under biblical law, priests ruled over elders, judges, and kings, but if this is the case, so the argument goes, the Bible cannot be used in our modern pluralistic society, where the Constitution forbids the state to be ruled by ecclesiastical officers. Of course, as we will see, church and state were not merged in the Bible, and the Constitution does not mention a church-state separation because the institutions were already jurisdictionally separated in the colonial era. Max I. Demont, writing in Jews, God, and History, offers a helpful summary of the biblical position on jurisdictional separation. I quote, "In the Mosaic Code, the civil authority was independent of the priesthood, though it is true that the priesthood had the right to settle cases not specifically covered by Mosaic law, Deuteronomy chapter 17. That did not place it above the civil government. The priesthood was charged with the responsibility of keeping this government within the framework of Mosaic law, just as the United States Supreme Court is not above the federal government, but is nevertheless charged with the responsibility of keeping it within the framework of the Constitution." Close quote. In Israel, the Torah, the law, was viewed as the authority for all three governments, family, church, and state. While the standard of law was the same, not all laws could be applied in the same way under each jurisdiction. For example, a father could discipline his own child for an infraction, but he could not discipline another family's child, excommunicate a church member, or impose and carry out the death penalty on a criminal who committed a capital crime. While the state has the authority to try and execute convicted murderers and impose other civil penalties, individuals, families, and churches do not. An elder in a church, in conjunction with other elders in his church, has ecclesiastical jurisdiction within his own ecclesiastical body to discipline any member, according to the guidelines laid down in Matthew chapter 18, and to participate in proceedings to reconcile differences between fellow believers, 1 Corinthians 6. He cannot go to another church, however, and exercise discipline there, although he may be asked to sit in a judicial capacity, but only under the direction of the government of the church where the proceedings are administered. Neither can he enter the jurisdiction of civil government as a representative of the church and use the power of the state to impose ecclesiastical laws upon the general citizenry. None of this means that an individual church member cannot use the Bible to determine whether a candidate running for political office is fit for that office. The Constitution does not state that no religious test can be given to someone seeking political office at the federal level. Article 6, Section 3. This article refers to governments supplying the test, most probably designed to keep denominational distinctives from being imposed uniformly by the national government. Some scholars claim that since the Constitution requires an oath or affirmation, and an oath imposes a sacred obligation, therefore an oath requirement could be characterized as a religious test. 19th century church historian Philip Schaff wrote, "In recognizing and requiring an official oath for both state and federal office holders, the Constitution recognizes the supreme being to whom the oath is a solemn appeal." Close quote. George Washington, a constitutional participant and signer of the Constitution and our nation's first president, understood the oath in this way, since he took it with his hand on an open Bible and is reported to have added to his oath, "So help me God." The Constitution does not prohibit individual voters from developing their private test for those running for political office. Our founders either directly referenced the Bible and its moral requirements, or they borrowed these moral principles from the Christian worldview and imported them into their secular worldview to make it work. They knew that without them, there was no way to account for morality, and thus no way to build a political system that would outlast them.
Thank you for listening to the Gary DeMar Blogcast. For more from Gary and American Vision, check out the American Vision collection in the Canon app.